All right. The next story or video that we're watching is Legendary Drop. It's called Judgment Day Has Come for Live Service Games. Okay, I saw this and I was like, oh, yeah.
We are in the calm before the storm. The eerie silence
We'll
before
go to
the first shot is
1.5
fired.
and
Live service
and
games
see if it's too
almost
fast for you
entirely
guys.
across the board have been losing players, losing relevance, and hemorrhaging money. While at the exact same time, every major publisher is rushing
That's
to go and
too
make the
fast.
next live service game, or they're desperately clinging on to their
How
existing
about
ones, trying to stay
1.25?
afloat. We are in the calm before the storm. The eerie
1.25.
silence before the first shot is fired. We are in the calm before the storm. The eerie silence before the first shot is fired. Live service games almost entirely across the board have been losing players, losing relevance, and hemorrhaging money. While at the exact same time, every major publisher is rushing to go and make the next live service game, or they are desperately clinging on to their existing ones, trying to stay afloat, not realizing that's exactly what's causing this problem in the first place, because something's been going on, but nobody's caught wind of it. And it makes a lot of sense. In most cases, we look at gaming failures in a case-by-case basis rather than zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. But when you do, you see that the foundation is starting to crumble. You look around and you see that every player in every community is complaining about the exact same things. You see prices that are skyrocketing and quality that's plummeting. You see microtransactions become the main priority
I like it, Horseman. Living dead services.
of these companies. Monetization become the main priority of these companies. And at the exact same time, communities are dying. You see that content creators and streamers who have built their entire career around single games have lost relevance at a rapid rate, and that's a sign of decay. That's a sign of collapse. These are warning signs that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. The industry has overvalued live service games to a reckless degree while undervaluing single-player games or just, day one paid-for experiences. And most
Thank you, Travis. I know I'm number one. I know.
of them have completely abandoned them. Look at EA. They come forward and believe that Dragon Age the Veilguard failed because a lack of live service elements.
Yeah, the amount of the CEOs and companies, we talked about this with the EA article, right? They're like, oh, the reason Veilguard failed is because it wasn't live service. Like, that's what you got from what's happening right now in the industry? You think that Veilguard failed because it wasn't a live service? Like, how deaf and blind are you?
Yeah, this is reality. What world do we live in? The best-selling and most talked-about games over the past few years have almost all been single-player games, and I think the vast majority of people will probably agree with me on that. Those are the games that I remember the most at the very least. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about the slow drain on relevance in live service games, the exhaustion of the player base, and why putting all your money and betting all your money on live service has now become a death sentence.
There was a person, and I forget, maybe he's watching this. There's a person, I forget his name. Big Bolt or big someone. Pardon me if you're watching and I forgot your name. Every time I talked about live service, every single time I talked about live service, he would say that I'm wrong. Live service, people love live service. Live service are happening more and more. They're not failing. They're being more successful. And that's not been true. Sure, there have been live service games. No, it wasn't Mo. There's been live service games that have worked. But there's been way more live service games that fail, okay? Can live service work? Absolutely, right? Are there big live service games? Yes. But when every game turns to a live service, there's going to be a massive pushback. Just is. Just like my analogy I said earlier about having pizza. Pizza's great, but if you have too much pizza, pizza becomes bad, okay? Live service is great. Except when everything's live service, then there's nothing special about it. Everything's live service, so people start pushing back.
The industry is changing, and I don't think they're ready for it. Now, every single year we go through the same cycle. Players and content creators debating whether or not their favorite live service game is finally dying. World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Call of Duty, Apex Legends, virtually every major title goes through one of these phases. And for years, it's mostly been hyperbole. But now, it's slowly becoming all but inevitable.
I wanna take out. I mean, MMOs are live service games, but because there's some MMOs you pay a monthly subscription and other ones you don't. And yes, they're live service, but MMOs I think are a separate category. Live service to me is like what you're seeing with Fortnite, Apex Legends, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, Helldivers. These are all live service games. World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, Final Fantasy 14, like all of these other online MMOs, I wouldn't consider, yes, they're live service, but most of them are like paid subscription, or they've been like this for years. So MMOs have always been live service because you're paying a monthly fee. So they're always keeping them updated to keep your $15 a month. These are free to play games. These are cheaper games that keep you coming back. Those are the live service games that people are starting to push back against.
Whether it's general fatigue, lack in content, financial strain, new game releases, or unchecked issues, players are leaving live service games in droves right now. I've mentioned this before, but Call of Duty has lost nearly all of the players that it gained from the launch of
Call of Duty Steam has lost all the players it gained from Black Ops 6 launch over the course of 1 month. 148,000 players for Black Ops 6 launch period of October to November. 145,000 players in December, right? That's a massive drop. Now, obviously, it's not because the game is boring or whatnot, but it's a factor of other games have come out. Other people are doing different things. And this is why I have a little bit of a shakiness of what's going on with Battlefield 6, okay? Because if you bring in people that left this other Battle Royale or this other Warframe or Warzone type of game and to come over here, okay, to make this the latest, greatest warfare game or Battle Royale game, that's a problem, okay? Because the people's attention span are getting shorter and shorter. And if you don't update your game, if you don't bring a character in like Marvel Rivals is doing every 6 weeks, people start losing interest. Roadkill, thank you very much. He says, let's get this PlayStation fan a new PC from Timu. $10 super chat. Thank you, Roadkill. Thank you very much for the continued support. Appreciate you. The Timu PC build. There we go.
Black Ops 6. A dip in retention is normal, but this isn't a post-launch fall-off. This is a catastrophic collapse. And it's not just Black Ops 6. The Steam launcher is tracking Call of Duty Warzone as well, meaning that all numbers across the board are plummeting.
That's 5 p.m. today. 5 p.m. Dolphin. So we won't talk about it until tomorrow show for the Daily Grind.
YouTube and Twitch metrics are telling the same story. Content creators who have built their audiences around Call of Duty are seeing a fraction of their normal viewership. Apex Legends lost 70% of its player base in just 1 year, and all the complaints between these two games is almost identical. Lack in variety of content, reusing cosmetics rather than creating anything new, content that raises the skill ceiling and alienates casual players, persistent...
Real quick, right? Real quick, the Apex Legend losing 70% of the people. What's been around? 3 years? It's been 3 years since Apex Legends came out. And now Apex Legends is made by who? EA. And EA is making what? Battlefield. And the Battlefield 6 is going to have a Warzone, and it's going to have a Battle Royale, and it's going to have these type of things that Apex has. So now you're taking the player base that was in Apex Legends that left to go play whatever game, and they're going to try to get those people to come back. And even if those people never left, you have EA has Apex Legends, then they have Battlefield, and they both have Battle Royales in them. And it's like you're thinning out the player base. You're not helping one game or the next. Hence why you shouldn't have a Battle Royale in everything. Hence why you shouldn't have a Warzone in every game. Hence why you should make a game, sell a game to what that demographic is for that game.
Bugs and performance issues, rampant cheating, and yet somehow, some way, the only thing these developers seem to prioritize is monetization. Players are bored, fatigued, and frustrated, while the
stores always work.
Companies behind these games keep extending their hands, asking for more money. And this has been a consistent trend because last year, Ubisoft reconfigured their battle pass for Rainbow Six.
Rainbow Six Siege fans, boo! $10 a month membership announcement. Oh, that's like an MMO now. A membership. Fortnite does that too, right?
Siege, increasing prices, removing rewards, not adding any new content to the game, while asking players if they'd like to purchase a membership to keep playing the game. Many live service studios have tunnel vision profit and have completely lost sight of the quality of their product and the service that they're supposed to be delivering. That's why they're losing players. I mean, look at what's going on with League of Legends. Riot has always been a studio, for the most part, that has been frequently celebrated by its players. But recently, the developer stepped forward to explain that while player retention is stable and revenue is up, they've come to realize that Hextech Chests, a free reward path that many players made their primary way of earning free cosmetics, is somehow not sustainable anymore. And, quote, we are giving away too much free stuff. Guys.
You made the problem. We didn't make the problem. You made the problem. See, and this is what I don't like. Certain companies get in and they're like, oh, we'll do this in the beginning and then we'll change it. Right? You made the problem. You made the business model. The business model for you was a free-to-play game that you're going to charge money for skins, for heroes, for guns, for DLC, whatever. You decided your business model and you wanted to make all the money. Okay. Well, you didn't make all the money, and now you're like, well, we got to change our business plan because we got you in now. You paid the money. Now you're here. Now you don't want to have lost costs. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to sunk cost fallacy that they have the characters or the players. The players have money invested into something, and then they change it up after the fact because they know they have you.
Guys, we're making enough money, but we want more. That's essentially what they're saying.
That's right. We made enough money, but now this is slowing down. This is going from here to here, and this is not enough. We need to make this go back up like this.
Here. Who the hell greenlit this? These dudes said, we only want you to buy something when you feel it's worth it, yet you took away the only way for players to get free stuff. How did you think this is going to go over? Now, while many live service games have been struggling the past few years, much of it for self-inflicted reasons more than anything else, single-player games have been thriving. We are in the middle of a renaissance, with both indie and AAA games reaching massive audiences and delivering.
I don't think we're in a renaissance of single-player games. I think this is some myth that people think EA said that no one's interested in single-player games, and then yet they come out with Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order over the years, right? Like, there's plenty of single-player games. Single-player games have always been here. They've never gone away. People just don't look at them, okay? Single-player games have always been a thing. They've never left. There was never less of them. They've always been here, and they've always succeeded.
Delivering real satisfaction. Hogwarts Legacy outsold Call of Duty. Baldur's Gate 3 is still one of Steam's most played games. Black Myth Wukong shattered Steam's concurrent player records. Kingdom Come Deliverance made all of its money back within 20.
Like, look at this. What he just showed.
And delivering real satisfaction. Hogwarts Legacy outsold
Hogwarts Legacy, right? 2023.
Call of Duty. Baldur's Gate 3 is
Baldur's Gate 3, 2023 as well, at the end of 2023, right?
still one of Steam's most played games.
Black Myth Wukong, 2024.
Steam's concurrent player records. Kingdom Come
Deliverance, happening right now, 2025.
It's made all of its money back within 24 hours, and the player numbers continue to rise. The list goes on. While live service games are still popular.
I disagree. Yeah, Sarge. It's not a renaissance. Single-player games have never gone away. They're here. They've always been here, and they're here to stay.
We are witnessing a shift. Players are finding more value and are being more valued in single-player experiences. It's hard to ignore all the success.
Come on, Mr. Luke.
And I think this is the key weakness in live service games and why they're struggling. Many single-player games still understand what players want, while live service games have lost sight of it entirely. The best single-player games aren't just selling gameplay, they are delivering a complete...
Right, Elden Ring, 25 million. Like, there's no renaissance. There's no renaissance happening.
Experience, a world worth investing in, a story worth following. Meanwhile, live service games have become nothing more than a financial experiment rather than a creative pursuit. Studios aren't building games for players.
Live service games are this and this only. Minimal, viable product. That's it. Single player games are years of investment. Hundreds of people's investment time, if not thousands, all depending on what it is. Okay? When something new comes out, single player game, like a Black Myth Wukong, like a Kingdom Come Deliverance, right? Like a Hogwarts Legacy, okay? These are people taking risks, putting themselves out there, single player games, not asking for microtransactions galore. They make a game, they sell a game. The live service aspect of it, okay, is minimal viable product. Let's put out the thing as fast as possible. Let's make it shiny and new. Let's jingle the keys, okay? And then let's see how much money we can make off of it. And if it doesn't make money, well, then we'll just close it down and move on.
Players anymore. They're building platforms to extract revenue. Every update, every feature, every design decision is dictated by retention metrics and engagement algorithms rather than genuine craftsmanship. The result? A stagnant, disposable gaming ecosystem where quality is an afterthought and player goodwill is traded for short-term profit. That's why I find it almost comical to hear that EA's Andrew Wilson, a man who has spent years gutting single-player franchises, is suggesting that Dragon Age the Veilguard failed because it lacked live service elements. It's a perfect example of
Mr. Android Wilson, Andrew Wilson over here. Okay, like seriously, he is... I don't want to say he's disconnected, okay? He's making a shit ton of money off of the Madden and the FIFA and all the other stuff, or I'm sorry, FC 25, okay? And the college football and stuff, and he's turning Battlefield into that sports game, basically. He's right from the business perspective. They're making a shit ton of money, but he's wrong on thinking that games fail because they weren't live service.
Of how disconnected these executives are from reality. They aren't just ignoring the industry's trends, successes, and failures. They're actively rejecting the lessons that they should be learning. In an article written by Todd Black of GamerRanks titled EA Boss Feels Dragon Age the Veilguard Failed Because of a Lack of Live Service. This is such a
tone-deaf article, like title. EA Boss Feels Dragon Age Veilguard Failed Because of Lack of Live Service Elements. Like, no, it didn't fail because of any other reasons. Shitty story writing, not fun gameplay, doesn't look like Dragon Age. It's attached to Dragon Age in any way, shape, or form. Now, it didn't fail because of those things. It failed because it didn't have microtransactions.
Elements. Todd writes, video games can fail for multiple reasons, and not all of them is on the developer or publisher. There are plenty of cult classic titles that were high-quality games, it's just that many people didn't give them the chance. There are also times when games are high quality, but developers and publishers never gave them the big push marketing-wise, so people really weren't aware of them and thus didn't buy them. Then there are games like Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which had plenty of push from BioWare and EA, but it also had a ton of baggage in the public eye. And that was the key reason why it failed. However, that's not what Electronic Arts feels. While speaking at an investor call, as noted by comicbook.com, EA CEO Andrew Wilson made a bold statement claiming that the reason the BioWare RPG failed wasn't because of a lack in quality or marketing, but because the game didn't have any live service.
No, you're right. It wasn't because of a lack of quality or marketing. It was a lack of, the quality was there for Veilguard. It looked great. It ran great. It didn't have a lot of problems. But it wasn't a Dragon Age game. It didn't look anything like a Dragon Age game.
Service elements to help it connect with gamers. Now, to make sure that I really drive home Andrew Wilson's words, because I want to make sure everybody understands this clearly, I'm going to do this in my best CEO voice, so give me just a second. We know as a global leader in entertainment, great titles, even when built and
I like it. He's doing a little accent. I like it.
Delivered with polished execution, can sometimes miss our financial expectations. In order to break beyond the core audience, games need to direct...
What is that, like Professor Howard? No, not Professor. Mr. Howell. He sounds like Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island.
Connect with the evolving demands of players who increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement alongside high-quality narratives in this beloved category. Dragon Age had a high-quality launch, the biggest launch, probably the biggest launch ever. And it was well reviewed by critics and those who played it. However, it did not resonate with a broad enough audience in this highly competitive...
Look at what this title says right here. Days after EA CEO suggests players crave live service, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 boss says the single-player RPG made all its money back in one day. But I thought single-player games were gone. I didn't think anybody wanted to play single-player games. Amazing. Amazing.
Market. Guys, I don't know what to say. Andrew Wilson isn't just out of touch. I don't even think this guy is on Earth. I'm starting to wonder if all these gaming CEOs all get together for a peyote retreat in the desert. Live service is becoming Scientology to these people. The idea that Dragon Age: The Veilguard failed because of lack of shared world experiences that players crave is laughable when the data shows the players aren't craving shared world experiences, they're craving good games, and they always have. By the way,
yeah, imagine, make a game, sell a game. Make a game means make a game. Inside that make a game section is make it good, make it fun, right? Make it a reason why people should play your game. That's the make the game part.
Wait, keep in mind, he is the one that made the decision to revert the game from a live service game back into a single-player game.
Right.
So if he had all this infinite wisdom, where was it when he made that decision? This isn't the first time that EA has tried to push this narrative. Back in 2017, Wilson said almost the exact same thing, that players just don't want linear games anymore like they did 10 years ago.
And then came out with Star Wars.
What was the result of that thinking? Well, EA shut down Visceral Games, the developers of Dead Space, one of the most beloved single-player studios that they had, because CFO Blake Jorgensen declared that they had to cut the...
I have a question. If single player is dead and EA doesn't want to make single-player games with live service games, where the fuck is my Battlefront 3? Where's Battlefront 3?
Bridge when you realize that you can't make a lot of money on something. And here we are years later watching EA continue the same move.
Oh, that's because they have to pay a lot of money towards Disney. That's why.
Away from single-player games and pushing more into live service. Blaming the Veilguard's failure on a lack of live service, to me, is nothing more than a desperate attempt to justify a shift that's well underway. A shift where EA can quietly transition all of its studios into live service factories while cutting out single-player development entirely. Because to them, single-player is too expensive, too risky, and not profitable enough. And to me...
It's not too risky. It's not too risky. If you make a game, and it's a good game, it will sell. The problem is the last part he just said.
Development entirely. Because to them, single player is too expensive, too risky, and not profitable enough.
Not profitable enough. It's profitable, but not profitable enough. It's this, it's not this. They want this. This is not profitable. This might as well be this or this. Okay? That's what that is. They want this. Constant this.
And to me, that's a death sentence. I think that by ignoring single-player successes and their value, these studios and publishers have lost sight of why players come to play games in the first place. And that isn't sustainable, and we're starting to see the signs of that now. Now, before I get into this, because this is a multi-layered issue that these games and these companies are suffering from, I don't have an issue with live service games. I love live service games. There's plenty of them that I play, but I think that these companies have undervalued single-player games and complete paid experiences, and I don't think they understand those.
That's exactly right, Rowick. That's exactly right? You can make any game you want. But you can't blame players if it isn't success. The players didn't make it. You did. So it's all on you. It's always on the devs. It's always on the companies. They made a game. They sold a game. If that game doesn't sell, then it wasn't a good game. People bought it, sure. Thousands of people bought it. Tens of thousands of people bought it. Hundreds of thousands of people bought it. But it didn't make enough money back to be successful because they didn't make a game that people were interested in. Make a game, sell a game.
Those game successes, and I think they're failing to learn the right lessons. Players do not have the time, the money, or the energy to only play live service games. That's not sustainable. We need variety. And in a lot of ways, I think something that they've kind of forgotten is that single-player games kind of act as a loss leader, drawing people into a publisher's ecosystem, building rapport, creating credibility, and strengthening...
I agree with this. I agree with what he's saying there, right? I'm not saying you can't have any live service game. What I'm saying is you can't have the same games across the board, right? So if EA comes out with a single-player game, and then they come out with a live service game, and then they come out with a battle royale game, and they come out with a war zone type of game, and they come out with a co-op type of game. Cool. Every year you have these type of games, and that's what it is. That's not what they're doing, right? They make a game, and they're like, this has got battle royale, and then this game's got battle royale, and then this game's got battle royale, and then this game's a live service, and this game, and everything's the same. Why is Ubisoft failing as a company right now? Every game that they have is a wide open live service, microtransaction filled game with bloatedness. Every Ubisoft game is the same formula. Same exact thing. Why are they failing as a company? I don't know. Maybe because Far Cry and Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs and all of these other things, it's just basically the same game, just in a different setting. Instead of making different types of games.
That studio's reputation, because reputation is a currency. YouTubers know this all too well. Every single time I take a sponsorship, I'm spending some of my reputation, but I can't make everything I do a sponsorship because reputation and respect has to be earned before it can be spent. And I think there's something to say about creativity as a currency as well. It needs to be generated and nurtured before it can be spent, and there is a finite amount of it. When you only focus on live service games, you are locking your developers into creative purgatory. They don't get to explore, take risks, or try something new. They're stuck turning out the same shit, update after...
No, trying something new now is, hey, let's put something risque in the microtransaction store and see if that sells. Like, that is the chances they take now.
Update, working on the same maps, the same mechanics in the same game without ever learning anything new, never evolving. Hell, I recently spoke with current and former Call of Duty developers when I was getting ready to make this video, and I asked them about the issues that were plaguing their games, and they all pointed to the exact same thing. They are never allowed to do any real engineering or creative work on the IP or its engine. It is effectively...
It's basically what he's saying is like they're workers in a factory. Okay? It's just the mold, right? Call of Duty game. It's the chocolate factory. It's the bottle company. It's like the guy who's sitting on the just watching bottles go by, making sure nothing's wrong. It's the same. It's a factory. There's no more art. There's no more people trying to be creative. Okay, they're just sitting there watching the same thing go by. All right. Oh, hey, Mike, I need you to work on this. Oh, cool. What Assassin's Creed is this? Oh, this is the Japanese one? Okay. What's this one? Oh, this is the Egypt one? Okay. Right? That's all it is. That's all it is.
Been the same thing for over a decade because Activision refuses to give them the time to improve it. Why? Because they have to ship a new Call of Duty every single year. Activision, from my perspective, is the poster child for abandoning single-player games and choking the life out of its own studios. They absorbed Neversoft and Radical Entertainment and then sent those developers into the Call of Duty mines. They killed creativity in exchange for predictable assembly line production, and now their games are suffering as a result of that.
EA was like, hey, we have 4 studios. We have 4 studios. Can we all put them on a new live service game of Battlefield, the next Battlefield? Let's take 4 studios. Instead of taking 3 studios and making, I don't know, something different. No, let's take all 4 studios and make one live service game. Let's hope.
Why not let them go back and develop another Tony Hawk Pro Skater or a new prototype sequel? Let Raven Software go make another Singularity. Let's see how that experimentation and creativity could be used in Call of Duty or maybe an entirely new IP in the future. This is why live service games are failing today. These companies are completely out of touch. Their games are devoid of creativity. They're pumping out copy-paste corporate slop that's only temporarily relevant before players inevitably just burn out from it.
Look, as much as I love Marvel Rivals, okay, Overwatch did it. No one could figure out what to do for Overwatch because they thought they had to make original characters. Marvel Rivals came and said, we're going to do it with Marvel characters. And now you're going to watch so many other IPs right? Hasbro right now is going, can we make a Transformers game like this? Can we make a G.I. Joe game like this? What about if we took Looney Tunes and made this from WB? What about if we did this with the DC? They're going to think about it every single which way because this is now popular. So they got to compete with this, not compete with Overwatch anymore. Overwatch was a hero shooter, but if they wanted to compete with it, they had to make their own characters. That was too much effort. Too much effort. Okay, so now NetEase was like, what about if we just do this with Marvel? Everyone's like, oh, it's genius, right? Characters are already there. Backstory's already there. Powers are already there. You just got to implement it on the game format. So now all these other IPs and all these other business owners were like, what IP do we own that we can make into Overwatch / Marvel Rivals? Watch. 2 years from now, you're going to watch so many. What's happening right now? Extractions. Before it was Battle Royale.
Live service isn't inherently bad, but the way that these executives have been handling it, well, it's a slow, creativity-draining death march. Single-player games, standalone titles, or traditional games are what built this industry. Live service games are just a product of that. They are what taught developers how to connect with players. They gave studios the time to understand what players actually want, to build mechanics that resonate, and to develop the skills that were necessary for them to succeed later on and create new things like live service games. But these executives don't see it that way. They don't see developers as creators. They see them as factory workers, assembling the same generic product over and over again until they're burned out. And that's the real problem here. How creative do you think a developer can be if they've only ever worked on Call of Duty? What happens when
you can't? If you play the same thing every single day, as I said earlier today, if you eat the same thing all the time, you get desensitized, man. You get bored of it. You're just like, I'm done. What's for dinner today? It's pizza. Oh. Okay. A brand new person working, this is why they get rid of developers, right? 18 months, this is why they get rid of them. Because they're probably disgruntled at that point. They've been working on the exact same thing for 18 months. They just pop them out, grab a new tissue. Hey, bud, welcome to EA. Welcome to Activision. Welcome to Ubisoft. Oh, man, I'm a big fan of Ubisoft games. And it's always fun when you don't know how the pudding's made. But then when you have to start making pudding, you're like, I don't want to fucking look at pudding.
you go to ask them to make something else? They can't. Haven't you guys noticed that every single time we see a game that's made by former Destiny, Call of Duty, or Battlefield developers, it just ends up looking like the same game that they've always made? The reason Activision doesn't make new games is because they forgot how to. And it's not just them.
That's a good quote. The reason you don't see new games is because they forgot how to make them.
Franchise fatigue is killing single-player games too. Every Ubisoft open-world game feels like another Assassin's Creed reskin because nobody is allowed to branch out and try something new.
Yep.
But instead of course-correcting, EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and every other major publisher,
they are course-correcting. They're course-correcting in the way of, how much is a microtransaction? Oh, it's $10? Well, let's make it 20 and then say put it on sale for 15. We just made $5 extra. Sweet.
is chasing this model, and they're betting everything on short-term profit. And while it's worked before, and it might be working now in some cases, it's not going to work forever. Eventually, they are going to run out of players that are willing to put up with the same tired games and developers that are willing to make them. It really is a death march because they can't take their foot off the gas. They cannot stop.
Nope.
They have to keep moving forward. They have to keep.
Let me take an example of YouTube. When someone gets a video that is hot, whatever it is, okay, let's say they're talking about I don't know, Veilguard, when Veilguard was hot. If I'm a creator and I made a video about Veilguard and Veilguard's video took off, okay, millions of views on my video. As a content creator, where do you think my next video is going to go? Because YouTube rewards that, right? So if my video made 1 million views and I made a couple $1,000 off of that video, where do you think my next video is going to be? Right? But I started my channel because I wanted to be artistic and tell you what I really thought. But then I saw the paycheck, right? That's what most YouTubers do. They see the paycheck, and I don't hate them for this in any way, shape, or form. I'm just giving you an example, okay? And Veilguard gave them and bought them a brand new car, all right? Bought them a brand new car. Their next video is going to be about the same thing. And their next video is going to be about the exact same thing. And their next video about the exact same thing. Because once you start making it, you're going to continue putting your foot on that gas pedal because that is the minimal viable product with the biggest outcome. So you're going to keep making that same content over and over and over until it starts to show a diminishing return. And then you find the next thing. And that's exactly how the video game space works. That's how the movie industry space works. They find that one hit title and they just keep making sequel after sequel after sequel, right? They find that one video game that makes a shit ton of money, Madden, FIFA or FC25. I keep calling it FIFA. It'll always be FIFA. Okay. And they just keep putting their foot on that gas. Call of Duty, keep making Call of Duty.
Keep making more live service games. They have to command all of their attention, because if they don't, the investors are going to leave, and we can't have that. And the CEO, he's not going to make that big old bonus that he wants. Lord knows they don't suffer from any consequences for their actions. They don't think about the long-term consequences of those actions on the companies that they have right now. They just rot them out and jump ship the second they get the chance to. And what ends up happening as a result is the longer that they pay attention to these games, the longer that these games command their full attention, well, the more damage it's doing to their audience, because they're losing touch with that audience. They're not developing anything new. They're not giving their developers any creative.
One more thing, and I'll back this up for a second. Everyone thinks that live service games are continuing to be super successful. But if they have like a 10% drop, but the company then just raises the prices of the microtransactions by 10%, right? So then the 10% drop of player base, but the 10% increase of the cosmetics, or 10% meaning they put more cosmetics in there or more whatever it is, that makes up for the people that are leaving, because the people that are paying 20% makes 80%, right? 20% of the population is buying a microtransaction, which makes 80% of the profit. So if they lose 10% of their population, but 20% of the population is making 80% of the money, they just raise that microtransaction up, or they put one extra microtransaction cosmetic in there that's $10 more than it was before because it looks cooler or it's got flames on it. And that's the way they make up for it.
Freedom to grow and be better at their job, or to improve the engine, or whatever it might be. And what do you think is going to be the end result of that? Well, the foundation of some of these long-standing live service games is completely rotted out. It's just waiting for somebody else, a slight wind, to come by and just topple the whole thing over. You know, I was wondering something recently. Why live service games feel so homogenous? And I know a lot of you guys have already experienced this. You look and you see a new live service game come out, and you're like, that looks a lot like this other game, but just reskinned, or a different theme, or whatever it might be. And the reason why is because they just keep cycling these developers around. Concord, brought to you by the developers of Destiny 2, making Destiny 2 combat but boring and with ugly characters.
Right. It's the people that worked at Destiny making Destiny-like characters, but just shittier.
We're getting Temu versions of games rather than anything genuinely.
Oh, that's a good one. Temu version. It's a Temu version.
Fresh or new. 2K just fired the director of Project Ethos. Never heard of it? That's why they fired him. It's ex-Call of Duty veterans that are making a Fortnite copy, just a straight-up clone, but diverse. Sound familiar at all?
Oh, man, I'm sure that game's going to come out. It's going to be very successful.
To you guys? I mean, Xbox just hired the marketing and operations director of Concord for Halo.
Why? Think of this, right? You're only as good as your last job. And if Concord bombed and was out for 12 days, why would you hire anybody from Concord? Especially the lead.
Guys, I mean, Xbox just hired the marketing and operations director of Concord for Halo. Because that's going to work. The biggest issue that I see in these long-standing live service games is that they are losing control of their games, they're losing touch with their audience, and they are unable to do anything about it because they just refuse to stop. Because all of these games, I'm telling you guys, go look. Every single one of them is suffering from the same issues because it's the same people making the same game with the same updates, and they just cannot fix anything. They can never change. They can never evolve it. And they're just waiting for somebody else, some other competition to come by and just knock them out of their seat. And that's exactly what's going to end up happening. And the cycle is just going to continue over again. And in the case of like EA or Ubisoft or Activision, in their greed, they have stripped the forest bare. They have drained the talent, so there's not even a drop left. And now it's all going up in flames. And something that I don't think they realized, I don't know how they didn't see this coming, the fire's burning a little bit faster than they probably imagined. And the reason why, and it's something that I'm surprised a lot of other people haven't taken notice of, but did you guys know that in 2024 alone, PlayStation had 25 live service games hit their store?
I didn't know that. 25 live service games in PlayStation Store. I didn't know that.
That's just on one platform. You add Steam into that pool? My God. They all want the biggest catch. Too many fishermen, not enough fish.
Yeah, they're all... I said this earlier, right? 1, 2, 5 live service games, cool. Like across the whole thing. But you got 25 on one platform? Cool. Where are you getting? Right? If I fish every day, like he's saying, right? If I fish by myself in a pond, right? I got fish to last me a year. But if everybody comes and fishes in my pond, fish are gone. There's no fish left. What are you doing?
The pond isn't getting any bigger.
Yeah.
It's drying up. See, the problem with chasing trends is that eventually the market is going to reach a saturation point, and live service gaming has already hit its breaking.
I don't think people understand saturation points. I truly don't. I'm not saying Legendary drops. He's bringing it up, right? I don't think businesses understand saturation points. I don't think consumers understand saturation points. Someone will tell you a game is like very successful, or because they're playing the game, they think it's good. But the business side looks at it and goes, "We only have 10,000 people," and they're like, "Well, it's still got 10,000 people." From a player perspective, you're like, "Yeah, it's got 10,000 people." From a business side, they look at it and go, "We've had only 10,000 people. We've played it this long. We haven't grown. Okay, we're at our saturation point. We need to be at 15,000. Okay, not 10." And everyone's like, "Well, it's still a good game." It's like, you understand, your preference as a consumer and their preference as a company are two different things. They need to have growth. Again, not like this, okay? But they have to have some sort of growth. Otherwise, it plateaus. And when it plateaus, that is their saturation point. And they have to change something. Otherwise, the plateau can dip, okay? So if it plateaus and then dips, they start freaking out. But they don't ever want it to dip. They'll just cut its losses. They'll be like, "Nah, it's plateaued for 3 months. We're done. Close the studio down. See you next one." Okay? They need some sort of raise up, but their raise up can't be like a 5-degree move. It's got to be like a 90-degree move. Otherwise, it's not successful for them because they are greedy.
Point. The industry's gold rush towards live service games was fueled by the idea of seemingly endless profits from games like Fortnite, Warzone, and Genshin Impact, but as more games have flooded the ecosystem, the reality has become painfully obvious that players are spread too thin, and the industry has created an environment in which, well, nothing feels permanent. When PUBG first popularized the Battle Royale genre, its audience was locked in. There was nowhere else to go, but now that audience is disseminated across countless games: Fortnite, Warzone, Apex Legends, Hunt Showdown, Escape from Tarkov, and the list keeps growing. There's more and more competitors. The same thing is now going on with hero shooters. Once Overwatch ruled unchallenged, but now Marvel Rivals has stolen its thunder. Valve's Deadlock is quietly making improvements, and niche competitors are picking away at the audience that's left. And here's the core issue: the more options
it's like vultures. It's like vultures, right? The one person makes a thing, the vulture sees and starts picking and starts to, we're the carcasses, by the way. Okay, we're the carcass on the ground, and one developer starts to pick at you because they're like, "Hey, look at this," and then other vultures start joining the party, and there's not enough. It's the same analogy as the fish in the pond
that players have, the harder it becomes for any single game to retain its audience. In the past, live service games had a natural monopoly. Players stayed where they had to. Now, the second a game stumbles, well, there's already another game that's ready to take its place. Now, what makes matters even worse is that these companies...
It's the tissue.
Companies haven't done anything to actually hold on to their audiences outside of trying to trap them in loops of sunk cost fallacy. They don't build communities, they build financial incentives to stay. Flooding the games with battle passes, FOMO-driven events, and expensive cosmetics, but there's a massive flaw to that system. Once players leave, they don't come back. And why would those players come back? Because it's not like any of these games are doing anything for them in the first place. They're not delivering on their needs. They're not fixing issues.
We have good graphics. Come on, you don't want to play the good graphics? We have really sexy cosmetics. You guys don't want to pay $25 for cosmetics?
Their game. Heck, they're not even keeping up with industry best practices. Newer live service games like Marvel Rivals have non-expiring battle passes, allowing you to be able to progress it at your own pace. Games like Helldivers 2.
Well, you still have to buy it. You still have to buy Marvel Rivals Pass to make it non-expiring. It does expire, but if you buy it, it doesn't expire.
We're pushing regular, meaningful content updates.
Halo never expires. You can work on any battle pass that you want, okay, at your leisure,
without the need for excessive monetization. You can earn it all just by playing the game. Meanwhile, Fortnite, the king of live service games, is constantly reinventing itself, offering massive collaborations, completely fresh mechanics, and incentives that actually feel rewarding. What have these long-standing live service games done to keep up? Almost nothing. Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Destiny 2, they've spent years raising their prices, removing content, and doubling down on aggressive monetization while offering less in return. They aren't rewarding players' loyalty, they're punishing it. And I know this firsthand.
Oh, yeah, I know. If you're a loyal gamer to that company, they don't give two shits about you. They're looking for new acquisitions. They're looking for new players. How do we capture the new players? Because again, they don't want to be a saturation point. They grab your money, move on. If you're bored, tough shit. We're looking for the next new person to come in that hasn't bought that stuff yet.
And when live service games were fresh, I spent money all the time. I'd buy skins, battle passes, cosmetics, all of it. But the more games that got released, I realized that none of it really mattered. The skins, the battle passes, the digital trinkets that I spent money on, all of this stuff was meaningless the moment that I stopped playing that game.
That's right. That's right. And this is why I don't usually buy a battle pass or game pass or anything like that, right? I'm not buying a battle pass to reward myself with the cosmetics for a free-to-play game. I give them the money because they made a game, they sold the game to me, okay? And if the game is free, I put my time. My time is my currency for that. And if I put enough time in and complete your battle pass, my gift to you, not my reward to myself, is that I pay for the battle pass. I don't really give a shit about the skins and stuff, okay? Because if I stop playing that game right after I pay for that battle pass, I'm never going to see that skin again, okay? I'm never going to turn the game on. I'm just going to buy. It's like I bought the game. I played the game. Old school game. You buy the game, you play the game, you put the game down. Live service games is you play the game, you buy microtransactions, and the way I look at it is I play the game, I enjoy the game, I put 100 hours in the game, I'll give you $10. I'll give you $20. I'll give you $30. I will spend the amount that I think your game is worth with buying your microtransactions. But that microtransaction is not for me to be like, it's a bonus. Cool, I have Wolverine's skin now. Okay, but I'm not buying that ahead of time, right? I buy that when you earn it. When you give me enough time in the battle pass, then I will give you money.
I moved from game to game, I stopped spending almost entirely because I knew I would inevitably leave. Why invest in something so temporary? Look at Call of Duty. They've tied Warzone to every new entry release in the series, meaning that every single year that there's a new Call of Duty that comes out, all the skins that you purchased, all the camos that you earned, all the progress that you've made, well, it's all wiped entirely clean. Every year, players are starting out in a brand new microtransaction ecosystem where their past investments, both time and money, have been made entirely meaningless because Activision doesn't value your money.
They don't not value your money. They don't value your time. They don't value your time. Rule number 1, respect the player's time.
What is going to be the long-term effect on those players? This is the environment that the industry has created. In their greedy attempt to chase infinite growth, they've now turned every single game into a temporary investment, eventually conditioning players to never fully commit because, well, they know.
So apparently Legendary Drop saw somewhere down the line the wizard behind the curtain, right? He saw the wizard behind the curtain and was like, why am I buying these microtransactions when it's pointless? Because I'm not going to see it anymore. He saw it. Now, if you want to call him disgruntled, so he's awoken. Right? He's basically Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. Right? He knows The Matrix is going on now.
Something new is right around the corner. And while we might not be seeing the full effects of this yet, I think we're starting to see the signs of it. EA's been doing the same thing with their sports games, and it's no wonder that year over year, live service money and player retention is falling. Players spend time and money in their Ultimate Team modes only to have that completely erased with the next installment. That's why I think it's nearly impossible for some of these struggling live service games to recover because they've trained their audiences to leave the moment that things get stale. They've made core features.
Yes, that's actually a really good point what he just made there. Let me rewind that for a second.
For some of these struggling live service games to recover because they've trained their audiences to leave the moment that things get stale. They've made core features feel like an afterthought while monetization takes a priority. They've made every single game feel like a disposable experience. So why should players stay or spend money on them? This kind of loops back to the original discussion I was having before on the long-term consequences of live service games, how the longer they go on, the more the industry loses sight of what actually...
Right, the more they go on, the worse it gets.
...brings players in. Most of these companies didn't start out making live service games. They had to make games that delivered value up...
Make a game, sell a game.
...up front. They forgot how to do that. They used to have to make an impact on day one, and they had to hold on to that player's attention immediately. They had to be worth the money, because if they weren't, they failed. That sense of urgency and respect for...
This is why free-to-play games work so well when they come out, though. Right? This is why free-to-play games work so well. Because they have to work. And because they work, it's like back in the day when you got a game and it was complete. Free-to-play games have to work to keep you interested in the game. And if it's fun to play, you're going to keep playing it. And then if you have fun playing it, then you'll spend microtransactions.
For the audience is gone when you turn a game into a routine. Now, beyond losing players in existing games, the oversaturation of live service games is making it nearly impossible to launch new ones. There are only so many players, and only so many people have the time, money, and patience to dedicate to a single game, yet these companies keep flooding the market with the same type of game competing for the same limited audience. Think about it. Sony planned over a dozen live service games to launch between 2024 and 2025. Where did they think those players would come from? And better yet, how did they expect for any of these games to be profitable when you're making so many live service games that you're not only competing with the industry, you're now competing with yourself. You are cannibalizing your own games. What did they expect? How did they think flooding the market with dozens of competing...
Right. Tell me how Battlefield's going to be successful when a battle royale in their own ecosystem of Apex Legends is there. Right? On top of the other battle royales that are there.
live service games, many of them sharing the same monetization models, gameplay loops, and even development DNA, was going to work. Look, live service games need long-term investment from players. They need dedicated time, engagement, and spending to be successful. Yet Sony and a lot of these other publishers keep trying to go with this shotgun approach, launching multiple at once as if players are going to be able to juggle them all. All of these companies are cannibalizing themselves, splitting their own potential audience across too many.
They're cannibalizing themselves, but they don't care because the fast buck that they're making.
Projects, too many games, and too many financial asks. You can't build a thriving long-term player base when every 6 months you're throwing a new live service game into the ring and expecting it to gain traction. These companies have bet everything on endless live service growth, and instead, well, they've created an unsustainable arms race where games don't have a chance to even establish themselves in the market before somebody else is there trying to take their place. And the funny thing is, I've already been proven right, because what was the end result of Sony's big push into live service? Well, over 10 of the known projects that Sony has made for live service have been canceled, including the absolute dumpster fire that was Concord, with thousands of jobs lost and hundreds of millions of dollars torched for nothing. The only survivors, Bungie's Concord and Fair Game.
Mind you, I don't personally care, right? And you can call me an asshole or whatnot. I don't care all these people lose their job. I didn't put them in that predicament, okay? As a gamer, I just want to play the game, okay? Now, obviously, if I was a developer and I lost my job, that would devastate me because you got to pay bills. But as the gamer, I don't care that you lost your job. I'm not the one that put you in that predicament, and it's not my job to bail you out of that predicament, okay? It's the company that threw you and sacrificed you to the wolves so they could better themselves. So you can't have a problem with me because I didn't buy your game. Okay, you have a problem with the company that threw you to the wolves because you didn't make a game. You sold a product that you didn't believe in, and you were just trying to make profit instead of making a good game and then selling that game for profit.
Games, which is effectively Concord 2 Payday Boogaloo, and we know exactly how that's going to end. Personally, I can't wait to farm it. Thank you, Sony, for the content. The only game that they actually found success with, Helldivers 2, a game that was a breakout hit, yet Sony found a way to be able to sabotage themselves, wanting to force players into PlayStation login, but luckily they ended up walking that back and the game is recovered. But I'm going to take a wild guess and say that game is not the success that they were trying to bet on. But this was Sony's big bet. They thought live service was the future, and out of the 12 plus games that they were working on, or at least the ones that we know of, only one of them found moderate success. Now they're just stuck cleaning up the wreckage. The reality is that this industry is too competitive and too unpredictable to bet everything on live service. These companies think they're diversifying themselves by flooding the market with live service games, but in reality, they're all just making the exact same game. Every game has a battle pass. Every game wants you to grind for unlocks. Every game wants you to log in daily. And when everything is the same, nothing stands out.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The reason Helldivers stands out amongst the rest is because it's a co-op, right? It's a co-op, and you get to play with your friends. Starship Troopers should actually do better, but it's not really a full-fledged game. It's still buggy as hell. No pun intended there with the bugs. But that games like that are different, and that's why they stick out.
And the worst part of it is that these companies know that the gaming audience isn't infinite. They just don't want to admit it. That's why we're seeing PlayStation and Xbox slowly abandon console exclusivity, because they need every sale that they can get. Square Enix and other publishers are finally putting their biggest franchises on multiple platforms because exclusivity just isn't sustainable anymore. Xbox is putting Forza Horizon 5 and the Gears of War collection on PlayStation, and allegedly they're also going to end up bringing the Master...
Well, let's be honest. Forza Horizon 5 in this specific scenario, very good game, very good car arcade game. It's been out for what, 4 years, 5 years? On the Xbox, it's hit its saturation point. Okay, it's been 5 years on this platform. It's its saturation point, so they want to make more money. Where do you go? You go to the other platforms, right? It's 5 years after the game came out.
Master Chief Collection over. I'm all for ending console exclusivity, and honestly, Xbox is making a smart move in doing this, but let's not pretend that this is happening because of some consumer-first mentality. This is happening because these companies are desperate.
Not only are they desperate, but that's the way it's going. And when the industry decides where it's going, that's where it's going. It doesn't matter about you and me. They want to make all digital, they're going to go all digital. They want to put all their stuff on all the platforms, they're going to put all their stuff on all the platforms.
Overexpanded, overestimated their own success, and now they're scrambling to fix the mess that they've created. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but I don't think that video games and publicly traded companies are a sustainable combination. Games are nuanced, creative projects. They do not fit into the corporate mold of ever-increasing stable profits. Investors and executives thought that live service games were the golden ticket. They thought that this was the first way to industrialize an industry that was, by nature, unpredictable. But the reality is, it's impossible. Every game is a risk. Every design choice, every mechanic, every update, they all carry uncertainty. You need
look, if you're an artist, every picture you draw doesn't mean it's going to be a hit. This is why artists, when they sell one picture, it becomes famous. That's what they're known for. Actors do lots of different roles. There's that one role they take that they're remembered for. And if they're really good actors, they're remembered for more than one role.
need that in this industry. That's how games
That's
grow. That's how these successful live service games came into existence in the first place. You cannot manufacture guaranteed success in an industry built on creativity and innovation. They're trying to turn gaming into something predictable, and it's like forcing a cylinder through a square hole. It just doesn't work. These games need to evolve. They need to be different. Developers need varied experiences. Players need varied experiences. But instead of fostering creativity, these companies have suffocated it, dumping all of their resources into the same few live service titles year after year. Eventually, they're going to hit a wall. They're going to realize that there's no fuel left in the tank, and when that moment comes, they won't have any creative ability to make anything new to pull them out of that death spiral because they've spent all their time maintaining the old. But the bigger issue here is that the industry is expanding faster than the player base. The number of games keeps increasing. The number of customers isn't growing fast enough. There's too much supply, not enough demand. And it's not just AAA publishers that are running the show anymore. Smaller studios, indie developers, and solo creators are all...
Indie developers have always been there. It's just been a smaller group of people. And now, because there's way more gamers, there's more people starting to pick up indie games. It's still... I think in my... What I'm saying right now, it's the same percentage. So let's say indie games are like 15% of the market. They're still 15% of the market, but the market's grown. It went from like 1 million or 100 million people to 200 million people. It's still 15%.
All claiming their share. Developer tools are getting easier to use. The barriers to...
And with social media, you know about independent games more often. That's all.
Entry are lower than ever, and these corporate giants just aren't competing with each other anymore. They're competing with the entire gaming landscape. And that's a fight that I don't think they're prepared to win, and I don't think it's a fight they can. There are so many factors working against these live service games that I'm surprised that we haven't seen more issues pop up sooner than this. We've seen some of them over time, gradually, slowly but surely, but I think it's all starting to pile up, and it's going to turn into a massive fire here in just a minute, especially with some of these larger established franchises, because keep in mind, what is Activision without Call of Duty?
Good question. What is Activision without Call of Duty? The World of Warcraft or Diablo. That's it. What has Activision done? Activision used to have a shit ton of games. What do they have now? What do they have? Right? They had the Transformer IPs. They had the Ultimate Alliance and stuff. Like, what is Activision and Blizzard? What are they? That's Blizzard? Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, if they don't have those games, what other games do they have? They don't have anything. There is no other games that Activision's working on. I remember, you could close your eyes right now. I remember Atari games with Activision logo on it. Right? Hundreds of Activision titles across generations of stuff. And now what do you have? You got Call of Duty. I gotta look it up. What do they have in the last, I don't know, decade? (2013) Deadpool. That's it. 2013 Deadpool. That's the last. Everything else is Call of Duty. Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty. That is crazy. Hold on. I'm looking to see what they have here. Activision games from 2020 to now. Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remaster came out. Sekiro Die Twice. But that's from FromSoft. That's not Activision. No, that's not from Activision. What's Activision? Oh, I guess From Software was part of their thing. Toys for Bob, Vicarious Vision. Yeah, it's crazy, man. They got nothing. So many games. The last almost decade, they have nothing. They used to do the Cybertron games, the Spider-Man games, Guitar Hero. They got nothing.
What is EA without their sports games or without Apex?
Oh, EA is nothing. EA is nothing. They have Star Wars. Don't get me wrong. They got the contract with Star Wars. They got Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order. They have Battlefront 1 and 2. But they don't have much. Just the sports games.
Apex Legends. What is Ubisoft without, was it Rainbow Six Siege? Like, these are the things that are holding these companies together. And without them, They are in a world.
Oh, I know they published it, Ghost. What I'm saying, Dupless. What I'm saying is games they've created. What do they do? Nothing. They're in trouble. If Call of Duty ever fumbles the ball and they fail, what does Activision have? Nothing.
World of trouble. They are in a world of trouble. And the thing, and how could you not see this coming? You could take any factor and point it directly at the live service industry and it becomes a problem. Let's look at economics as an example. If I go to buy a video game, I don't really regret that purchase. I don't feel bad for making it if it's a game that I wanted, as long as it's good and it doesn't have any problems, which that usually never ends up being a problem because I don't pre-order games or anything like that. I wait to make sure it's actually good before I purchase it. Well, I never have a problem with that. If I go to buy a microtransaction, I always feel dirty. I feel weird. I need to shower afterwards because it's not necessary. And if it is necessary, if it's part of power progression or whatever it is, a gacha game or something like that, then it feels even worse because I don't want to be buying those kind of things. Those are the
I've never personally had a regret of buying a video game that was a single player game. Or I should just say a game that wasn't a non-live service game. I've never had a regret of buying a game because I buy the game because I like the game and I play it regardless. It could be a shitty game, okay, but I could like that game and I have no regrets of it. A live service game, I had regrets buying Division, right, and pre-ordering Division 1. That was the eye-opening to me. That was the peel the curtain back and see the wizard behind the curtain, right? Division 1 was my first and ever regret. I don't even regret buying Battleborn. Battleborn got closed down, but I don't regret buying it. I enjoyed that game. I've never regretted buying a game that I like. I've regretted buying or playing a live service game.
Exact opposite of the microtransactions I want to see in games, and then it feels even worse as a result of it. Now go and add any type of economic strife on top of that. Raising prices, inflation, people having a hard time finding jobs or whatever. Now they're going to make it even more difficult for them to be able to justify those purchases in those games, regardless of whatever their price is, because they know it's temporary. That brings on another problem because the fact that these experiences are so temporary in the first place. The market is flooded with these games. There's so many different live service games to play. Look how many gachas you can play. How many first person.
Yeah, I don't regret, even though it's a live service game, Water, I was happy with the campaign and the characters that were in the game. I enjoyed that game. I have 1,000 hours over 1,000 hours in that game. I don't regret that game. Right? I could have stopped after the single player aspect of it, and I would have been fine.
Person shooters or battle royales or whatever. I don't feel like spending money on this stuff because chances are I'm not really going to give a shit about it in about a month or 2 or 6 or whatever it might be. I know I'm going to walk away from it. You got games like Call of Duty or the sports games that literally just erase all of the money that you spend regardless. So what's the point of
stopped buying sports
games
over
there
decades ago.
Yeah. It's inevitable at this point that these games are going to run into some serious issues. And again, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened sooner. I think the real reason why we've seen such a big push into live service, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, there's no way that they couldn't see the long-term effects of live service games. And then I realized they do. They know it. Because all these decisions are being pushed by CEOs that rarely ever face consequences for their actions, that are there to drive up revenue as much as they possibly can, drain the well, make money for the investors, and then jump ship as fast as they can. So then they can leave it for the next guy to find out that the whole thing's about to collapse, and then they get to be the guy that can try to save the company, if they can. Or you can be like Bobby Kotick, and you can just sell the company to Microsoft and look like a hero.
Golden parachute for Bobby Kotick.
Good job, Bobby. There's so much more here that I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of this. I'm going to do the deep dive video on Call of Duty that's going to be coming up pretty soon. I might end up doing that next week maybe, but that's going to uncover more of these issues, I think. That's a really interesting case with that game. But, man, I really do feel like it is just the disposable nature of these games. That's probably the biggest thing that's becoming probably the biggest issue for most of them, is that there's just too many of these games in the market. They're replacing each other too quickly, and everybody is constantly looking for the next game to jump ship to. And over time, not only are you going to have all these disposable games, but you're also going to have the audience that is spread out so much that most of these games likely aren't even going to be sustainable in the first place.
Right.
You're not going to be able to make enough money to hold on to enough developers to even make content to keep players playing those games in the first place. I think that's a big problem that they're going to run into. Too many games. Like I said before, you got too many fishermen, not enough fish. And that's going to become a really, really big problem. And at the exact same time, the other thing is that I just think that live service games kind of, fly a flag in the face of like how these studios got started in the first place. Because the only reason that they got to make these live service games is because, well, they made single player or multiplayer experiences that weren't live service games before. And that's how they learned to get the ability to even pull players into their games.
Crowded says, real quick, he says, this is why I don't want PvE in Marvel Rivals. It could end up being just as grindy live service feeling feature. Here's where I'll push back a little bit on that. Because it's a live service game and because it's a free-to-play game house, I think if they add a PvE mode to this game, I feel like it could actually get more value of why you would buy one of the skins. right? Because the power fantasy is if I want to be Captain America, and I want to be Captain America. I want to be Chris Evans Captain America, and I buy the new Captain America skin. Where now I'm Infinity Ward Captain America, and now I'm playing inside a game where I get to punch MODOK in the face or go up against Doom. There'd be more reason for me to buy a skin to then be that character in the game. Where if I was just PvP, I'm using the skin, especially in first person games. It doesn't really fucking matter why you buy skins. I don't get it. But at least in third person, at least I'm being the character that I want to be, right? It's that moment of I am Captain America, I am Iron Man, I am Luna Snow, I am Juggernaut, whoever they put in the game in the future. I think the PvE is on top of what the game's already offering, right? I don't think it's going to be grindy. I think it's just more of a game mode. Like they put the Doom, solo type of every man for themselves type of mode in there, which is a fun other mode to go in to just have more fun in the game that you're already having fun with.
To make fans, to create this ecosystem that they have. And the further they get away from that, and the more they only pay attention to this byproduct of the industry, the more they're going to lose sight of what actually got them there in the first place. And when I look at the quality of the games and the quality of the content that's delivered to players, I'm seeing a direct correlation. I don't know about you. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, share it with your friends, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, follow me on Twitch, link is in the description, and yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
There you go. Check out Legendary. That's a good video. That was a good video. It said a lot of stuff, right? Go give it a like. His description in the description down below. You can get his channel. Click at the link. Go there. Give it a like. Okay, give it a like. Give it a sub if you don't know if you want to sub to his channel.